Many of us expend a tremendous amount of psychic energy searching for lost parts of ourselves. This search manifests in various forms, through our dreams and daydreams, in our exploration of countless spiritual paths, and in our relationships that often mirror back to us the fragments we seek. In a world where many of us feel incomplete, we yearn to recapture the intensity and intimacy we once knew or have imagined. To comprehend soul loss, we must first grasp the essence of the soul. In this video, I will define it as our vital essence, the seat of our emotions, feelings, and sentiments, distinct from the physical body. The conventional belief is that each of us has one soul, but the truth is more nuanced. Our soul is divisible into parts and fragments, much like our soul itself is a fragment of God. If you answer yes to the following questions, you likely have soul fragmentation, also known as soul loss. Do you find it difficult to be fully present in your body? Do you often feel feelings of apathy, depression, or even multiple personality disorder? Were you frequently ill during your childhood, and do you have a weak immune system? Do you have memory gaps in your life, especially after the age of 5? Do you seek external stimuli to fill an internal void and get entangled in addictions, whether it be to substances, food, sex, or gambling? Do all these symptoms seem to worsen following a significant loss or trauma, such as the death of a loved one or divorce? In ancient times, loss of this kind was attributed to the soul being frightened away, straying, or being stolen. In our contemporary world, soul loss often arises from traumas such as incest, abuse, the loss of a loved one, surgery, accidents, illnesses, miscarriages, abortions, combat situations, or addiction. In some way, most of us experience some degree of soul loss. Some people have been more deeply traumatized by life, they may seem quite dispirited. Whenever we experience trauma, a part of our vital essence separates from us to survive the experience by escaping the full impact of the pain. These fragments may then become stuck in the time and location when and where the trauma occurred. Consequently, some of the soul fragments may not have been lost just in this lifetime but across many previous lives. What constitutes trauma varies from one individual to another, and soul loss can be caused by whatever a person experiences as traumatic, even if another person would not experience it as such. The trauma that causes soul loss is often inflicted by people who are victims of their own traumas. I point this out not to excuse the perpetrator but to draw attention to the great chain of soul loss, as one generation passes its injury on to the next. In the case of incest, for instance, the perpetrating parent is often an incest survivor. Part of the parent's soul has been lost since his or her traumatic childhood. To know this does not make the perpetrator's actions less horrible, but it does make them more understandable. How can parents abuse their own children without having been somehow dissociated from their own natural balance? Soul loss begets soul loss. The same is true for the perpetrators of any violent crime. These crimes can be heinous, causing great damage to the victims. After feeling empathy with the victims, one always wonders how the criminals could have become so dissociated from human feelings, which is obviously a sign of their own soul loss. Besides traumas, it's also possible to experience soul loss through emotional attachment to a person, place or object where you energetically leave a part of yourself there. If you become emotionally attached to another human being, you might embed a fragment of yourself within their aura, effectively fragmenting a piece from your original soul. Generally, if you have pieces of yourself embedded in another soul, that person will frequently occupy your thoughts, and you will strongly identify with them. If you have soul fragments of others, this can be considered a form of entity possession. Most people have one or more of these soul fragments of others, some of whom may still be alive, whilst others belong to those who have died. I believe mental illnesses are manifestations of different soul fragments trying to exert their influence on the psyche. In the most extreme example, this will manifest as multiple personality disorder. If you have soul fragments dispersed in other locations, you may experience recurring dreams about those places or find yourself constantly thinking about them. Having a desire to travel to a certain location could be your soul's way of trying to retrieve its lost soul fragments from past lives. When you enter a haunted house, you may perceive the soul fragments that still inhabit that particular place, which may belong to various souls who were once there. This is especially true when a soul experiences a traumatic death, such as in a building fire, causing fragments of that soul to become trapped within the structure. Even after remodeling the building, these soul fragments may continue to wander within it because they have lost connection with the parent soul. Each fragment is often disoriented, searching in vain for other pieces of itself or their parent soul. Similarly, when a soul fragment becomes attached to an object, we have what is known as a haunted object. We have all heard of the armchair that a grandfather used to love, which became haunted after his passing, or the haunted doll that used to be the prized possession of a child. A third way of soul fragmentation is due to it being abducted by a spirit or ghost. In cases where another soul or soul fragment is possessive and dominating, they can take portions of your soul without returning them willingly. These souls are known as energy vampires, as they take and conceal other souls' energy within themselves, hoping to derive more energy and power from it. For shamans, illness has always been seen as a spiritual predicament, a loss of soul or a diminishment of essential spiritual energy. Because the universe cannot stand a void, if we are missing pieces of ourselves, an illness might fill in that place, with coma probably the most extreme example of soul loss. If the soul totally vacates the patient, the person will die. At the point of death, as the physical body dissolves, the soul enters the astral planes. These astral planes consist of multiple subplanes, some of which you would describe as eerie, dark, and frightening, while others would be characterized as pleasant and beautiful. The soul will then either seek a future incarnation or attempt to reunite with its higher aspects, depending on what transpired in its previous lifetime. If the previous lifetime was relatively fulfilling and devoid of significant trauma, the soul can progress rather swiftly and likely rejoin its higher aspects. It may undergo a brief reassessment before embarking on another incarnation. If the previous life was particularly traumatic, it is possible to have several fragments wandering within other individuals' bodies, other locations, or objects. The remaining soul becomes so fragmented that it may end up wandering in the astral realm as ghosts and discarnate spirits, attempting to attach itself to people as entity possession. It is important to bear in mind that the aspect or fragment wandering in the astral plane is still part of a greater collection of fragments that ultimately reunite with the parent soul. Hence, it is not truly lost but temporarily disconnected from the higher levels of its being. Soul energy is indestructible, meaning a soul itself can never be destroyed. However, a soul has the ability to fragment into numerous pieces, akin to shattered glass, and it can be challenging for these soul fragments to reunite and form a cohesive whole. It follows that if the shaman can retrieve the lost soul parts, the individual can be restored to harmony and well-being. This soul retrieval is done by the shaman in an altered state of consciousness. Whenever these fragments reunite and merge, it is referred to as soul integration. The process of soul integration involves gathering and reuniting these scattered soul pieces in a way that promotes soul growth and accelerates the journey toward higher realms. Many healing techniques are specifically designed to remove fragments of other souls from one's auric field and return them to their rightful owners. For example, retrieving and releasing soul fragments from other people's auras and sending them into the light allows the parent soul to easily reclaim them. In modern times, psychology and psychotherapy have offered a framework to address the sense of incompleteness and disconnection that many experience. People may invest years in therapy or self-help groups, using methods like dream work, free association, or hypnosis to strive to uncover hidden traumas and become whole once more. But the process of psychotherapy often addresses only the parts of ourselves that are still accessible, the ones that are home. A comparison of the psychologist and the shaman at work might be helpful here. Imagine both are working with a woman suffering from multiple personality disorder, a psychological condition in which many independent personalities exist within one individual. The psychologist might say that this person has undergone very severe trauma that has necessitated splitting off or dissociating from parts of herself. He or she might suggest that these split-off parts carry memories or aspects of the personality that are not safe for the patient to experience or express. At this point, however, the psychologist might see his or her work as helping the patient to retrieve those lost parts from her own unconscious by a slow process of uncovering and integrating. As a shaman, however, the question is, where are those parts now? How can I retrieve those parts for the patient? By restoring lost soul parts, the shaman can give the psychotherapist a whole patient with whom to do psychological work, thus making possible faster and deeper results. Conversely, the psychotherapist can help patients build self-esteem and healthy life patterns that allow them to stay alive and present in their body once their souls have been restored to them. Eventually, all souls that undergo the process of incarnation over multiple lives reach a stage where their awareness is such that they no longer desire to continue reincarnating in physical bodies. Souls in the third and fourth densities follow the incarnational model, but when souls reach the fifth density, which occurs after they have brought back all their lost soul fragments, they experience a reunion with members of their soul family or fragments of their soul. This marks a soul integration to an even higher aspect of themselves, and they move on to explore a different realm of existence. For more in-depth information on the 12 densities, please refer to the next video.